Hey, everyone. Welcome to Sons and Daughters. We do have a great guest today, and you can see her with me right now. So, Jamie Little is my guest today. I do want to let you guys know. So, the interview that I did with Jamie, she and I taped that last week. I think it was last week. Maybe, yeah, it was last week. Jamie, I'm all over the place, as I'm sure you are as well. So, we taped it last week, last Tuesday, and that was, of course, before any of us knew or the news came out about Kyle, whether he was sick or obviously now that he's passed away. And so I really felt it would do a disservice to Jamie, to me, to this podcast, to the people that listen to the podcast, and of course to Kyle and his family if we didn't just jump on here and acknowledge the pain that everybody is going through, the shock that everyone is going through. And also, I wanted to use this space for Jamie and I to share stories about Kyle because, and I don't have any notes. I kind of jumped on here. Just thought we would kind of freestyle this, Jamie, because I personally always have a really hard time kind of like when tragic things happen or when there's something that takes place in the news. I don't really kind of lend my voice to it a lot because I feel like there's already so many people. With this one, however, I found that it was almost like everyone's kind of reaching out to each other and sharing stories and videos and moments about Kyle, because that's kind of how we're all sort of handling this and dealing with this and hopefully healing together. So thank you for jumping on so that we could kind of do this before we run our interview. I guess you were at the Indianapolis 500 this weekend. What was that scene like? What kind of things did you see them doing for Kyle up there in Indy?
Yeah, Shan, thank you for doing this. I think it's certainly the right thing to do. Obviously, you and I have known Kyle for a long, long time since he was just a pup. And with me growing up in Vegas, of course, I knew about Kyle forever and his accomplishments and knew he was going to be a superstar. So going back to Indy this weekend, it was such a conflict of emotions, not something that I haven't gone through before. I
Yeah.
have. But when something so tragic happens and you have to go on with the show, it is the hardest thing, but something takes over. When you're an experienced broadcaster, something takes over and you know you have to tell the story. You have to do your job and don't let emotions get in the way. That's not my job. As soon as I was off camera, I mean, it was the emotions because every fan in Indy wanted to talk to me about Kyle.
Yeah.
Every pit crew member was pointing out things that they were doing to remember Kyle. They're writing KB, number 8, number 18 on their shoes, on the tape for the pit box for when the driver stops in his box. We had it illuminated on the pylon. Lap 18, it was Kyle Busch with his face on the pylon when the cars are on track. There were signs for KB everywhere. Jeff Dickerson, who goes way back with Kyle, was there all weekend. Just seeing those faces, so many faces that cross over from NASCAR to IndyCar. And you just see each other and it's just like, you want to weep together because it's like, this situation is just so different. We haven't wrapped our arms around Kyle not being with us. It's not like he's retired and we all kind of relived his past and all of his greatness. You know, he hasn't been inducted into the NASCAR Hall of Fame. This was so sudden and so tragic. Less than a week after I called what became his final NASCAR win,
Yeah.
he's gone. And Shannon, to make it worse, I found out right as we were starting to kick off a party at our house to host 80 people from Fox. Everybody was at our house, and every person that walked through the gate, it was just hugs. In a weird way, like you said, sharing stories, seeing everybody and talking about it made it easier. But it was just this weird storm of emotions in my head all weekend long.
Yeah, and some of you guys might not. Jamie alluded to the fact that she's been through this before. She has. She covered Dan Weldon when Dan died in Vegas. You were all over that broadcast, and obviously having to be at the hotel, the hospital. I'm sorry, and the family. And I know how close you were with Dan. So
Yeah.
yeah, I know that you've gone through this a little bit of a different, right? But at the same time, like it's just so unexplainable. I was at the Coca-Cola 600, and I went. It was kind of went back and forth whether I was going to go or not. But like you said, we're journalists and we want to see the moments, the big moments, and I knew that there would be a lot of those moments at the track on Sunday, and I also wanted to just kind of be around people who knew him, and it is this weird kind of like, you're there to do a job, and and you're happy to see people, but at the same time there's just like this tug, where everyone's feeling the same way. I was in the drivers meeting, and the looks on those drivers' faces, obviously Steve O'Donnell did a great job, getting up, kind of talking. There was just this really, really heaviness, knowing that they have to go onto the track without him. One thing I think about Jamie is that, like, as we're watching all of these videos, and Lee, my boyfriend, is watching them, he didn't live those moments like you and I did, right? Like the duh, or the faces, or all the things that Kyle did, laying on the thing to go to the infield care center. Like, we lived those moments every single day. And so he's looking at these videos and he's like, man, like, this sport had no idea what we had with Kyle. Obviously in terms of the talent, but just in terms of like the personality and the person that he was, and the excitement and the energy that he brought to the racetrack. There's never going to be anybody that can even get close to what he did, not just from a performance standpoint, from just who he was.
Yes, he was a showman.
Totally.
And sometimes he leaned into it, sometimes he hated it, but we as reporters love to hear from Kyle no matter the situation.
Not me,
as hard as it was, you wanted it for the broadcast, but you didn't always want to be the one, because sometimes we'd say, you get the short straw this week. You get to talk to Kyle when he finishes second, which was the worst thing in the world. Kyle would rather finish last than finish second. And I mean, I just appreciate him, because there are drivers that come in or have been around that make you work harder at your job. There haven't been many. I mean, Tony Stewart, Kevin Harvick, Kurt Busch, and Kyle Busch. And if you say the wrong word, it can set them off and they can make you look like an ass on TV. Kyle, or if you ask them the right thing, they make you look like a hero. And that was Kyle.
Yeah. You know what, though? I've thought so much about this. And one of the things I posted was that, like, my relationship with Kyle, I met him the very first time. He was, I think, 18 or 19. He was at Hendrick Motorsports. I posted this on there. I was at Speed Channel. We went to do a feature where we went ice skating with him. And I remember us joking that he looked like a baby giraffe on ice skates, because he was so young back then. And then over the years, obviously, we had our moments, right? And it evolved. I mean, he was on Inside the Playoffs last year for a couple of shows, and like we got to talk. I got to really kind of get to know him. I did Samantha's podcast. I was in their home. And so I've thought a lot about those interviews, and what I've realized is that, like, yeah, Tony, Kurt, Kevin, they'd get like they would come. I don't want to say come at you, but like they could make you look stupid. Where I don't think Kyle did that because he was like outward. It was more like inside. He never was like mean, if you know what I mean. Like,
No.
I had
He
someone
was
tell
just
me I was
raw.
like a stupid question one time, like straight to my face, right? Like, and like Kyle wasn't mean like that. He was just
No.
pissed off. And
Yeah.
like, and so that's one of the things I've realized as I've started to kind of like reflect on all of those moments of holding that microphone for him, is just that, like, how intense he was, but it was a lot internal.
You never question where he stood on something. He was unapologetically himself. And that's what you loved about him. I mean, he gave us moments that we laughed about. He was such a badass. He had swagger. I mean, I look
did.
at these pictures. I keep going through pictures, Shan. I was doing it before I got on here with you again. Like, he had swagger till the end. I mean, I just saw my last interview with him. It was at Texas. They announced that he got a new crew chief, and it was his birthday, and I got to wish him happy birthday. And that was the last time. And we appreciated Kyle when he was here, but I think we'll appreciate him even more so, not just because of the man that he was in a vehicle, but who he was off the track.
Yeah.
and that personality and what he gave us in broadcasting, and to the fans.
And we saw him evolve into that man, right? We saw him as a young boy,
Yes.
18, 19 years old. And maybe you even saw him. I want to know the first time that you remember meeting him. But like we saw him become a man, a dad, a husband to Samantha. Like, and that family, like when we always say that there's like NASCAR's family, but like like that family is NASCAR. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like Samantha, like their life was with Kyle at the track, creating
Yeah.
that life. And like you think of like the NASCAR family, and that's it. At least at the top of my mind. Tell me about the first time you met Kyle. I shared mine with you.
Yeah, I think it was at the track in Vegas, and he was so young. But I just remember, Shan, we heard the stories about Kurt driving for Roush,
Mm-hmm.
and Kurt, I don't remember when it was, but he told Jack, if you think I'm good,
Yeah.
wait until you see my little brother. And so I expected that when I met him. I'm like, who is this kid? And he came out and set the world on fire. And God, was he funny. He was, but he kept winning, so he could get away with anything Kyle Busch wanted to get away with. Like
He
he was
he could
ridiculous. Like he
smash
was,
the guitar in victory lane, which we were there for. He could get out of the car at Bristol and say this car is
it was
which
a
we were
brand
there
new
for.
car, and it
Yeah.
still sucks. And I won the race. Like there were so many of those
Yeah.
with Kyle, and I just have to say about the way that he evolved and what Samantha did for him. He always wore his heart on his sleeve, which a lot of times it was just irritation. He was just irritated that he had to talk to the media. He was irritated if he didn't win. If he won, it felt like the first time he won. That's just how Kyle was. But Samantha comes into the picture, and for anybody that has followed them on social media, like she has brought out this side of Kyle through the years, just being so goofy and so loving and such a great dad. Um, just so endearing. This
Yeah.
side that we had never seen of him before.
Softer side.
A softer side.
A
And
silly
I'm very
side too, right? Like
He's
things we
so
never
goofy.
yeah.
He's so funny. We have so many of those memories thanks to Samantha and their kids, like just being on board with sharing their life and sharing who he was away from the racetrack.
I yeah, there's so many great. I remember the swagger that you mentioned. So obviously I wasn't at the track every single weekend like you were for a really long time. I was in studio or I was doing other sports. And I remember when I was getting something for my charity when I was doing the charitable foundation thing with the Ironman. And I went to the track to get people to sign stuff so that I could auction it off. And Kyle was one of the people I was going to have, I think it was a shoe or something. And I hadn't seen him in a really long time, right? Like, I mean, we'd interviewed him and stuff like that, but it wasn't in person. And I remember like him walking out of the media center, and that he had a different aura about him. He had a different swagger. He was a man. Like, he just seemed like he just had this like different aura. And I think that's what you're talking
Mhm.
about. Like he did evolve in front of us and became a man, a champion, a dad, all of that stuff. And I remember the first time that I actually really kind of saw it because it had been so long since I'd seen him,
Mhm.
which was really
You know,
weird.
one of the things that makes me so sad is like we talked about Indy. Doing the double for him was a big
Oh,
deal.
yeah.
He really wanted to do the Indy 500, and he had a deal locked up, sponsorship ready. He
Oh,
visited the race
wow.
shop. He
Is that
visited like
true?
the shop. Oh yeah.
When do you think that was
He
going
had
to
a deal
happen?
in 2017, and he had another deal, and coach just didn't feel comfortable with him running the 500, so he didn't get a shot there. But I do know that there were talks that we would perhaps see him next year or the year after in the 500 doing the double.
Yeah.
He was working on things behind the scenes, I could say, in a car and maybe in the broadcast world. He was working on things beyond racing. And it makes me really sad because I've had conversations just literally in the last 2 weeks that I want to have Kyle in the booth with us for some truck races. And I would love to see him on our cup coverage because there's nobody else that could give the kind of knowledge that he has. Not just as a driver, but he understands what goes into these trucks and these cars in every series. He is a wealth of information, and he was the next broadcaster, in my opinion. And I thought really we were going to get that chance.
Yeah, when I got to do that Inside the Playoff show with him, I remember standing there talking to him. We were talking about his kids, and he said to me, it's been a while since I've been able to take them to victory lane. And so Brexton, of course, remembers, but, Lennox. And I remember when he did get to victory lane with them, like I remember that conversation with him because it was so important for him to share that. I also, a funny story, I was like, I put like self tanner on my arms, to do the show. And he came in and he's like, you have self tanner all on your arm on the back. And he's like, helping me out. Like, I'm like, okay. And he's like, I got it. I have to do this at home as well all the time. And I just thought it was like such a funny side of Kyle, the goofball that you talked about.
Yeah.
We're gonna, I know we've kind of taken about, it's almost 20 minutes right now. And we're going to get to the interview with Jamie, because it's a great one. And we did tape it before the news came down about Kyle last week. So that's why we thought it would very important to jump on here and kind of just share our thoughts and of course our prayers with Gay and Tom and Kurt and Sam and Lennox and Brexton. I want to read this and then I want to ask you your favorite Kyle Busch memory. So I keep like quotes from athletes when I hear them say something in an interview. So that I can go back and if I'm sitting down with them 10 years from now, I can bring that back up. Kitty, my cat's up here. I remembered that I had a quote from Kyle, and here it is. He said, I'd rather people dislike me for who I am than like me for someone I'm not. So what was your favorite Kyle Busch memory?
Yeah, I have a lot. I posted the first thing when I found out that he had passed. I posted a picture of Cody, my now husband, and Carter walking to driver intros at Las Vegas a handful of years ago. And backstory real quick, I met my husband because of Cody. So Jeff Dickerson hired Cody to come to Charlotte, be a manager, and he was paired with Kyle in 2008. The highlight years, right? 08, 09, smashing the guitar, all those things. And I met Cody that way, and we've been together ever since. So Cody would stay in touch. They would stay in touch. And we're walking out to driver intros in Las Vegas. I don't remember what year it was. But we're all walking together, and I look down, and Kyle is holding my son Carter's hand. And they walk all the way to intros. Wow. It was like the most heartwarming moment because my kids loved him. They knew that they got free M&Ms in his holler, and they just liked him because he won all the time. And that was such a touching moment. And one other quick moment, 2009, Kyle Busch finally won at his home track, which is where I grew up to, Las Vegas. And Cody and I, of course, got to be part of the big celebration. And he's drinking straight out of, a champagne bottle. Him and Samantha are brand new. It was just such a great moment for him to finally get that win. That was like the biggest win of his career at the time, obviously. And I'm just so happy I have those moments.
Yeah, I mentioned some of them, the guitar, him getting out with that car of tomorrow and talking, obviously when I first met him. I just think that there's just, my interviews with him, I remember the first time that he just gave me a one-word answer and I was like, oh crap, I wasn't ready for the second question, right? Like you just had to be on your toes. And then there's a great picture that we have of like, I think it was Richmond. He didn't make it to I don't even what it was back then, the chase, the playoffs, whatever it was. And he was eliminated at Richmond. And there's just a picture of Joe Crowley like this, like I'm like walking towards them because I have to get the interview with Kyle. And Crowley's like this with his hand out. Every once in a while I'll get a text from Joe Crowley and it'll be that picture because he's kind of giving me the Heisman and Kyle's walking. So yeah, it's crazy to think he's not going to be on the track. It's crazy to think that he's not going to be part of races. No. It's just crazy.
Shannon, I'm not looking forward to getting back on that side because it's going to be hard, I think, for me to call that race. I'll do my job and I'll do it to the best of my ability, but it's going to be a hard one.
I thought the track, I'm like, it hits me. So like, it isn't there and then it is. And there's just so many different, like your pain level for Samantha and that family and just the unfathomable, like you can't even put yourself in that place. Like, and then just the thought of what has been taken from everybody, like So I think, the Coca-Cola 600, I thought them having the family there was really beautiful.
Hats off to NASCAR. They
Really beautiful.
absolutely did a beautiful job with everything that they did to think of Kyle. I mean, obviously they didn't have much time to do it,
No.
and to bring everybody together and the entire family showing up, I just can't imagine. But they did him proud and his Rowdy Nation proud. I was proud to be part of NASCAR watching that moment.
You think about how painful, how much pain they're feeling, and then all of a sudden you're getting all of this love from the however many thousands of people were there, all of the wives that walked up and gave Samantha a hug, the kids, Owen
Oh,
walking up. I mean, just the love. That's why I thought it was important. I think for them to understand that they are so incredibly loved, and there's so many people that are praying for them. I mean, the power
yeah.
of prayer is real, but it's still not going to be enough to kind of
Hmm.
ease the pain, obviously. But I thought it was really important, and yes, I'm glad I was there.
Yeah.
So
Thanks, Shan.
yeah,
Thanks
Jamie,
for
thank you for taking the
talking.
time today. And of course, Travis, our producer, jumped on as well. I just thought it was really important that you and I jumped on here. If we would have just gone into the podcast, you and I together, and didn't mention anything about it, I just think it would have been a huge fail. So
Yeah.
thank you. And I'm glad that you were able to join me for the podcast. And my cat is not wanting to leave me alone. She's a dog woman, not a cat woman. So thanks, Jamie. Okay, Jamie Little and I'm gonna do a little read, Jamie. Okay, you gotta give me some time to give you some love. All right. We started together at ESPN in 2007. I still remember the very first day that I met Jamie. Like, I still remember like the image of her kind of like burned into my brain. She already had a name in the garage, having covered Indy car racing. And I thought that she was literally the coolest, most beautiful, badass thing that I had ever kind of met. She was also, if you've ever met Jamie, you know this, she was the most down to earth, humble, gorgeous, talented person as well. And over the last 20 years, we have celebrated new jobs, relationships, marriages, children, birthdays, career moments. But we've also been there for each other during death, divorce, heartache, job loss, and of course, criticism. So you guys see her on IndyCar, you see her on NASCAR, you see her in the booth for the Truck Series and ARCA Series. You see her interviewing Michael Jordan, which I text her afterwards all the time. But here's what we want to know on Sons and Daughters. How does the daughter of Laura Thomas, my mom too, a former Vegas showgirl, become one of the most recognized and respected motorsports reporters, any gender, period? Because we don't need an identifier when it comes to the one and only Jamie Little. And obviously, one of my really good friends. I love her. We'll say that right off the top. And she's literally one of the hardest workers that I've ever met. And I have so much respect for her because of that, I think. So welcome, Jamie Little, to the Sons and Daughters podcast. It's about damn time.
Aw, Shan, that was probably the nicest intro I've ever had. So thank you. Yes, we have a lot of history together. That's a lot of years, girl. I mean, it brings back memories. The way we looked, the way we felt, like life. It was such a new world that opened up so many doors, I think, for you and I, professionally and personally. But that's a big question. How do I get here to this point in my life? She raised me as a single mom, only child. I think it's such a unique story because, I've always been asked, was your dad into racing? Did you have a brother? No, neither. None of that. I was just a tomboy. I want to have fun in life. I want to ride dirt bikes. I gravitated to the boys. It was just a natural thing. And that's kind of how I was, Shannon. I think a big part of it was being raised by my mom. I saw her always say yes and figure it out later. I had to be there to cut the firewood, to start the fires, to shovel the snow. I mean, starting at 6 years old, that's just what you did for survival. And that just instilled in me that work ethic and that survival. And that kind of attitude that you can't be a victim. You just have to do. And I think that has served me really well in my career.
Yeah, I've known you for 20 years. I've never heard you tell that story before. I've never heard you say that when you were 6 years old, you were having to go out there and cut firewood. Like, tell me, and I love your mom, and I know that, like, sometimes, like, digging into how our childhoods were, you and I have similar paths. It can be, a little painful sometimes to hear some of those things. But what was it like to sort of just the two of you guys?
Yeah, it was a lot, especially I think because my mom was so young. She's trying to figure out how she's going to raise me. Meanwhile, it's the roaring 80s where partying your ass off was just part of life when you're in your 20s. So there were a lot of those times. Like my mom was, well, let me back up a second. So she started out as a seamstress at Harrah's Lake Tahoe. So they had a big cabaret show, the big showgirls, the topless shows, that was a thing, not only in Vegas, but Lake Tahoe too. So she needed to make money and she was a great seamstress. So she got hired. Well, you fast forward, I think it was probably a couple years. The choreography of the show was starting a new show in Spain. And he came to her and said, do you know how to dance? And she didn't. My mom was never a dancer. She said yes. And he said, you are the look I'm looking for. 5'9". She was blonde, just beautiful, beautiful body. And she said yes, like, and I'll figure it out. And so that's kind of where it all started. So fast forward a couple years, my mom comes back after dancing, leaving me for 6 months to stay with my dad and my grandma. That's where she cut her teeth in Spain for 6 months.
Oh
And
my
then
gosh.
she came back and got a job in the new show in Lake Tahoe. So my mom would be partying with Bill Cosby and Sammy Davis Jr. I mean, that's just a couple of names, but that was just part of that entertainment lifestyle. And there was a lot of fun to be had, but there were nights and times that I was alone a lot. And I just had to learn to be on my own and be okay with it. And that was just kind of my mom growing up and raising a child. She was the only dancer that had a child. Like I was the mascot in the showgirls room and guys, I saw a lot as a young child.
How old were you when she went to Spain?
I would say 8.
And so you had been living with your mom, and where did you go stay did you go to your dad's? Like, what was that 6 month like, bye, Jamie, I gotta go. Like, and I'm just gonna leave you now, even though we've been together for the last 8 years.
I think I was actually 7. So my parents still had the house that they lived in with me. So my dad came and stayed, there. They got divorced right after that. So they were already kind of Splitsville, like on that way. So yes, she left. Of course, I didn't understand the concept of time and how long she would be gone, but she was gone 6 months. And my grandma was not the nicest person, and I didn't know her that well. So it was a tough time. At that time, like all of a sudden another woman was coming around, and that turned out to be my dad's girlfriend, and he ended up marrying her. And so I just saw a lot of things at a time that you really start to remember things from your childhood. It was a formative time for sure. So it changed perspective. And I think that's kind of when my mom realized her life was better off without being married to my dad. And so it was a wild 6 months. I remember getting like chicken pox, and my mom was away, and that was so hard because she was my mom and she wasn't there. So my dad had to do it. And my dad and I had a good relationship until he passed away, but never super close. And then he battled dementia in the end. So, your mom is your mom. And we went through some things together.
Yeah. Who did you turn to during that 6 months? Like, were there activities that Jamie did? Like, did you start kids are going to find something to do when they're trying to, I guess, deal with emotions that they don't understand.
Yeah, I was an outside kid. Like, I mentioned that I loved hanging out in the forest. Like, I would go out in the forest. I would make believe all these things. I would catch crawdads. I was a big freaking crawdad.
Like alone? Are you alone, or do you have friends
yeah.
with you? Oh,
Oh,
really?
yeah. Down to the river. I would go down there with my fishing pole and some cheese. I would bring home 30 crawdads and I would cook them myself. and I would eat them. I know that's crazy, but anybody that's been to Tahoe with me, I'll show you still. I still, that little girl comes out and I catch crawdads. It's kind of gross now as a grown woman. But I mean, I lived in a fairy tale place. I couldn't ask for a better place to grow up. So I stayed busy that way. You know, I always found something to do. I don't ever remember being lonely.
Okay, so you're the mascot in a it's topless, right? It's
Yes.
topless.
Yes.
I think there's some people that would be embarrassed about that. Like, back especially back in the 80s, like my mom is, it's like Playboy and your mom is not she didn't have clothes on and she's in front of men and she's in front of this. Like how did that resonate with you when you were little?
It's funny. I didn't think anything of it because my mom was just always real open like that. So that wasn't a surprise to me that my mom was the center of attention and she was dancing on stage. Like I looked beyond this. I remember my mom, like models would pick up, or dancers would pick up modeling jobs. And so all these big celebrities would always come to Tahoe for this big tennis tournament. And I remember my mom, she did this one where she walked George Burns, and he was like it then. Walked him across the tennis court, and she was on the cover of the National Enquirer. That they said that's George Burns's girlfriend, and it was such a funny thing. I mean, we lived in this tiny town, and my mom was doing big things, and I guess I just never thought that it was strange that she was a showgirl like that. Now, maybe when people think showgirl, sometimes they think it's the same as a stripper, and it's so not. So
Yeah.
if it was the other side, maybe I'd feel differently. But she was just an honest showgirl, and every person in her show was the same. But most of them grew up dancing. Here was my mom just drinking from a fire hose, trying to figure out, choreography and how to do big kicks and all these things on stage.
So she was learning as she went because you said
Absolutely.
she's like, this is how I'm going to pay for my daughter and me.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
To explain, so I could sit here and tell everyone what your mother is like, and I will. I think the fact that it wasn't strange is because knowing your mom and knowing what I know now as an adult with kids, it's like they follow your lead. And
Mhm.
if you make it seem like it's weird, they're going to think it's weird. If you make it seem like something's off or not right, or you're scared or you're emotional, they're going to follow your lead. Like that's a setup to tell everybody what your mom. I adore her. I think she's
Yeah.
badass, but she's very strong. So you
Yeah.
go ahead and tell me what Laura's like.
She's just strong. She comes from a family of seven, Ohio, and she was, she played sports, but she had a lot of brothers, so she was just tough. She had big dreams as a young girl. I mean, I think that set her apart from the beginning. Like she wanted to get the heck out of the small town. She always knew she wanted to go to a big city and do big things. And as soon as she turned 18, she moved to Cincinnati to model. And she met my dad, who was a drummer, and he was traveling the country, and he was an RCA recording artist. So he had a great career going. He was much older, and they ended up meeting, and she traveled with him. And then it got to a point where they're like, we want to have a child. And they settled in Lake Tahoe because it was such a booming area for entertainers. And my dad played there a lot. So that's how we ended up there. And my mom has just always, I think, been a fighter. There's no quit in her. She couldn't. And Shannon, my stepdad that she married, the best thing that ever happened to me, they met on a blind date when I was 15. And I told my mom, I urged her, because he was a surgeon, totally different realm of the world my mom and I came from. She's like, I don't think I want to go. What am I going to have in common with a doctor? Like, she didn't go to college. Like, what am I going to have in common? I said, Mom, I'm moving out in 3 years. You need to go on a date. We need to get you set up. I need to know that you're going to be okay when I move on. And she went out, and he instantly became just the best thing that happened to us. And gosh, 2005, so 2006, so 20 years ago this year, he suffered a major stroke, and he probably should have died. A lot of brain damage. He's a hemiplegic, so he can't use his left side. And my mom has been his caregiver.
Yeah.
And, he's in great spirits. He still, golfs one-handed sometimes, but will never drive a car again. My mom is right by his side for everything for 20 years. And I think that just says a lot about the character, because I think most people, if they have somebody in their life that suffers something so major, they easily turn their backs or walk away, or they're overwhelmed and they put them in a home. And my mom has never done that. She wants to
Hmm.
keep their life as normal as possible. And they're going. I mean, they still live a great life. They can still out, my mom could out party me still, Shannon. As you know, you could keep up with her better than I can.
I
Um,
can. Because she's
so
my mom.
I know, I swear.
And
She,
we say
she,
that all
she
the time. I'm like, I was literally taken from the hospital at birth and mixed up with another family because she's my mom. I'm like, look, Jamie, I look like her. Like we have it. So yes.
I know. It's so funny. Yeah, I'm a little more reserved, I think, than my mom used to be. But she just no quit in her. That's just been her spirit her whole life, that she just kind of lives life to the fullest and still does. And she's doing great. She golfs all the
Yeah.
time, still lives in Vegas, and still watches my races, still texts me if my necklace is off to the side on camera. I mean, it's so wonderful to still have that at my age, that, you see
Yeah.
people that our age, they don't have their parents. A lot of them have lost parents, and to
Hmm.
still get those texts is pretty awesome.
Tell me about that date night when she went out with Jim for the first date. Like, were you up waiting for her, like to find out how it went? Like, do you remember conversations or what she said the next day?
Yes, I remember they went out, and I think they were still, I was sleeping, but the next day I'm like, how did it go? And she's like, he was great. And I think we're going to have another date. And I was so happy. And I think they waited a little while to introduce me, but I remember him coming over, and of all things, I had a biology presentation, and I had misspelled something on my board, and he helped me with it so he could help my grade, and it worked. And then Shan, a few months later, he's staying at our house because he lived in California. And I kid you not, I open up the freezer, and there's spines, and they're human
Oh.
spines in the freezer, because he was creating this. He created something for the back, and he patented it. And so he would get human, cadavers and
Uh-huh.
things that he would
Uh-huh.
use. So I'm like, should I be like mortified, nervous, or just appreciate that this man is just on another level than I've ever seen?
What was it like for you to have to then share your mom with him?
It was wonderful. He came in at the right time in my life.
Yeah.
I was a troubled teen. Like, I got in a lot
We're
of
gonna get
trouble.
into that a little bit because you and
Yes.
I have similar paths, but go ahead,
I
hon.
know it's hard to believe, people that
We
know
look so
my
buttoned up.
past. But yeah, I went through some stuff. And I was living in Vegas at the time. We moved to Vegas probably at the worst time for me as a
Why did you guys move
13-year-old.
there? Why did you guys move to
My mom got
Vegas?
a job with a jewelry store at the Mirage in Las Vegas. So that took us there. And, at a girl at 13 is going through a lot of change. And to move there, it was rough. I acted out a lot. My mom and I did not get along very well. We always still loved each other. And I went through a lot of trouble. And he literally came into my life at the perfect time, when I was at the height of bad and struggling. And he helped change things. He was kind of that mediator between the two of us. We never had that before. And I
And you
think
never
he,
rebelled against him because of that, like, because you
no,
were at this time, really?
no, he was just that kind of person, literally, like the best thing that happened. Like, I could never be upset with Jim. He was everything. And he just had a way about him that he brought my mom and I back together.
Tell me, I often, you and I have shared stories about our childhood. I grew up in Fort Lauderdale. You grew up in Las Vegas. We talk about some of the similarities in terms of it being a vacation town, a lot of transient people coming in. The weather doesn't really turn over, so there's no rebirth. I think that there's something to be said about that. When the leaves and it snows, and then there's this rebirth, you're just in this constant state of party, this constant state of, there's people constantly going, drugs, alcohol, whatever you want to get into. And when we were younger, fake IDs, all of that stuff, it obviously wasn't as tight as it was or is now. I think a lot about some of the directions that my life could have easily taken, right? Easily, whether it be just people that I hung around with that got in trouble, that I could have been there. My life could have looked a lot different. How many moments did you have like that, Jamie?
Gosh, I had multiple. Shan, I say, you come to that fork in the road, and you could go left or you could go right. And I took some bad turns, but it was because of who I was inside and the way that my mom raised me, that it always brought me back to that moral compass.
Hmm.
But I had moments, Shannon, where I mean, I ran away when I was in eighth grade. I ran away again in ninth grade, and I was gone for a week. My mom had no idea where I was.
Jesus.
I was with shady people. I had a horse. It sounds funny, but I had a horse that I brought from Lake Tahoe. And I have stories of literally sneaking out of my house, going over to where I boarded my horse and riding him to a guy's house that was a drug dealer. I mean, I was 15. Like, what was I doing in the middle of the night? Like, it's the craziest stories. And I've never told those stories. Um,
Well, I have a lot. I have a lot of those stories of my own.
Yeah, I know. But it made us who we are. I mean, and I'm just fortunate, like you said, that we came out of it because it could have easily been another story. But if I didn't have that love and that never give up from my mom, even though we went through our struggles when I was a teenager, I don't know if I would have had the strength to come back around and not make a bigger mistake that would have impacted the rest of my life.
What do you think was the moment that and I say this as well, like I say that there was something inside me that did know right from wrong. Crazy. Like I don't know where that came from. Because
Yeah.
even though I was like at times like just a I like just a wild animal, right? Just doing whatever with no regard for any consequence. You just okay, go, right? Like the answer was always yes, right?
Yes.
Always yes. When I was a kid, and there were opportunities for you to always say yes to things that were could get you in trouble.
Yeah.
Um, I know the moment for me when I like was like, "Oh, this can't be it for me.
Yeah.
There's got to be more. I have to make a change." Like, what was that moment for you?
Gosh, I would say I believe, in eighth grade at the time. And
So
I
that's
had
kind of
gone,
early, eighth grade, right? Like, you're not
yeah,
even in high school
I,
yet. Okay.
right. So it was before gym, before all that, just me and my mom, just not getting along. And I had gone out with friends on like a Friday night, and I drank a lot in a short period of time. And, a lot of this, looking back, it was rebellious. I was
Mm-hmm.
rebellious because of my father, because he wasn't the
Mm-hmm.
father that I wished I had. He wasn't really a big part of my life. And I drank a lot, and my friends thought it was funny to take me home. And I showed up to my house, and I remember my mom and I getting in a fight. And we lived in a little apartment, and I went to my bedroom and I opened up the window and I jumped out. And it was a two-story window. I landed on my feet, but I broke my back. And I went to the emergency room and had to get my stomach pumped because
Oh
I
my
had
God,
that
Jamie.
on me. And I remember hearing, like, this is Vegas, like trauma center, either it's bad. And I remember hearing like gunshot victims go by and like the chaos of the emergency room. And that was my moment that I'm like, there is more to life than this, because that is something that sticks with me now. My back problems from that one stupid moment in my life when I was so young. But I think that was the turning point. And then not long after that, my mom met Jim. So I was already in a space where I was ready to accept, like, what is my life all about, to see the better side and know that there's something bigger out there for me. That was everything. So I went through it super young, which is more
It's
dangerous,
great. Yeah.
I think.
Well,
But I never looked back. After 16, I mean, I never messed with anything like that.
mhm.
I thank goodness I've been on the clear track and looked up since then.
Yeah, I know people are probably going to be like, "Oh my God, she was drunk in eighth grade." Again, everybody, it was a much different time back in
Yeah.
the 80s. Like, I remember going to family parties where the adults would be like, "Oh, the kids are getting drunk, like down in the basement," right? Like
Yes.
smoking cigarettes. Like it was just a completely different time. And especially, I think, in some of the environments, that we were in. Luckily, I think you said unlucky in eighth grade, but luckily for you, I think you did kind of grasp that a little sooner because unfortunately, it took me a lot longer to realize that, and it could have been, pretty dangerous for me. So, when you think about moments in your life, that was certainly, I think, a moment in your life, and then Jim coming into your life was certainly a moment.
Yeah.
You mentioned his stroke, and I don't think no one realizes probably the first time you're covering the Indianapolis 500, which is the biggest event of your career, right?
Mhm.
What you were going through on the back end, because that was when Jim had his stroke, right?
Right. Yeah, so this would have been my third Indy
Oh, it was a
500.
third.
Yes, so this was my third one, but the year before, is when Jim and my mom came to the 500. I got them passes and they had the time of their life. And then it was a year later, so 2006, it was Carb Day, which is coming up in just a couple days. And it turns out that he had a stroke after the surgery. It went a long time, so had a stroke. I stay in Indy. I do the Indy 500, and then right after the race, there's a police escort. They put me in the car and take me straight to the airport, and then I land and go straight to the hospital in Las Vegas. And at that point, we didn't know if he was going to make it or not.
Jesus.
It was really bad, and he just, he could barely talk. It was the craziest thing I'd ever seen. So yeah, dealing with that. And then he was in the hospital for quite some time, and my mom would put the races on because I didn't stop going to the races. So
Hmm.
he would get to watch me and hear me and feel like a little sense of normalcy. So that was a bad time.
Did you ever think about maybe taking a day off and not
I
working?
did. I did. I think when my mom said I need to keep working because I feel like when you miss work in situations like that, it almost can compound everything on your plate that's happening. So I remember watching, different things in the hospital and just thinking like, okay, I need to stay on top of what's happening so that when I get to the racetrack, I'm not so far behind. And you go through a lot of those things. It goes back to when we had our kids too, and 6 weeks after I had Carter, I had to jump back on a plane and go to Chicago. Hardest thing I've ever done. It's like life gets back to normal for that time. You have a job to do, and then as soon as you get on the plane to go home, all the emotion comes back, and that's just kind of. I've always been a fighter.
One of the questions I wrote for you is, one of the things I love about you that's different than me, you know this, is that you have this like ability to stand up for yourself. That like you got a set of balls, seriously. Like I just don't, right? Like, like I just don't. Like, when do you think you found your voice?
I don't know, Shan. I just feel like I've always kind of had that, but maybe after I did like my first Indy 500, where I had been working my ass off. I had gotten my degree while I was working covering Supercross. I was doing X Games. I was already working on ESPN and ABC, and I wasn't supposed to do the Indy 500 in 2004. I was part of the whole month leading up, all the practices and everything. And I worked with all these gentlemen who had been there for years and years and years and so well respected. And they called me and said, "We want you to be part of the Indy 500. We're going to add, a position for you on pit road. We're going to make it 4 pit reporters." And I was, gosh, 20, how old was I? 25, I think.
Wow.
And I'm like, what am I doing here? But at that moment, Shan, there was no going back. And at that moment, I did the race. And afterwards, I felt like, okay, that was the hardest thing I have ever done. I did it, and it gave me a voice because I proved I can do it. I can do it at the highest level. And I think there was no looking back at that point.
How do you think you did in that first race?
I think I nailed it. And
Oh,
I
I
think
love you saying that because me, right? This is how different we are. I'm like, it sucked. It was terrible. I messed up. I did this. I did this. And like you, yes. Tell me why you think you nailed it.
Well, because I was basically like embedded in IndyCar at that point. Like we had already spent 3 weeks on the air covering every storyline. Like I got Parnelli Jones to cry. I interviewed AJ Foyt, like these legends that was building that confidence for me and my reputation throughout the garage. And I feel like once the race happened, it wasn't my first race. I had only covered a couple IndyCar races and called pit stops ever for a couple months before that race. Um, but I feel like I nailed it, and it was an 8-hour broadcast, Shan. We had rain, and we never left live programming. It was eight
Wow.
hours and 22 minutes. And at that point, you're just like, you don't even have time to be nervous. You're just doing your job. You're jumping to the next thing, helping programming. And afterwards, it was like, if I can survive that, I can do anything. Now, I've had moments since that I was like, that was terrible. That was awful. But that one, I felt like I did the best I could, and I did a good enough job that it's kept me here all these years later.
Yeah, I do want to talk a little bit about some of that stuff a little bit later. I do want to get back to you because I'm going to call your bluff. I think that your voice came earlier, and you've told the story about walking up to a producer
Yeah.
at a Supercross event and saying, "Hey, how do I get this?" How many times had you done that before and it didn't work out? And is that still the path you think people can take?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Rusty Wallace taught me in 2006, squeaky wheel gets the grease. Do not be afraid to ask for what you want. And my 9-year-old daughter, I tell her that all the time. Let them know you want to do it. What's the worst they can say? No, who cares? And yes, that did happen young for me, Shannon. When I was 18 and I graduated high school, I didn't know what I was going to do. School was not my jam. I moved to LA and I was like, I'm going to pursue
At
modeling.
18 by yourself?
Yes, moved to LA and I was going to pursue modeling. And every morning I'd wake up, I'd make a list of these modeling agencies I was going to go to. I was so organized. And I got told no constantly, constantly, constantly. And it wasn't long after that. It was about 6 months of doing that, Shan, where I realized the hell with this. I want to use my voice. I've got an opinion about things. And you know what? I love racing. This supercross stuff I'm obsessed with. Why don't I try to turn that into a job instead of knocking down these doors that are going to take me nowhere and I'm going to get, looked at just for this and not hearing my thoughts on anything, like, and I'm not going to make much money doing it. So why don't I pursue this? So that kind of gave me that voice, like I'm going to create this job. But then it wasn't long after that I was at a supercross race and I was on a mission. Like I knew, like I realized I could be that person on TV doing these interviews and I think I can do a better job. And I went up to a guy with an ESPN microphone and I said, hey, this is really what I want to do. How do I get involved? And he said, well, I'm a freelance producer and shooter, and you could come to local races with me in San Diego and just kind of learn the ropes. I did that for 2.5 years. I even moved to San Diego, ended up going to San Diego State because I quickly realized I need to get a degree as a fallback for sure. And didn't make any money. So 2.5 years I do that. But in the meantime, I got the live announcing job for Supercross. So I was doing that like every weekend. I'd get on a plane and I'd make $500. I'd come home on Sunday and I was learning. I mean, I was learning the job and that world of broadcasting. And it kind of, I guess from then, Shan, I knew I had to pursue what I wanted to do. And I had to let people know that I wanted the job.
Gosh, it's so crazy to hear you talk about what you were doing at 16, what you were doing at 18, what you were doing then. And just like, Jamie, like you think about how strong you were. And I think about like, it kind of makes me reflect on my own story as well. It's like, no, I'm going to do this. I'm going to
Yeah.
work my ass off. I'm going to do the next step. I'm going to be good here. I'm going to make the next move. And you were just like doing it by yourself at that young age. Like, it's so crazy. It's 2 years older than my kids.
That's what I always say. If there's something you really want to do in life, you have to pursue it and you'll find your way. Your path will take you there. But why settle doing something that doesn't fulfill you, that doesn't fulfill your life to a point where you wake up in the morning and you're like, this is awesome. Like, I'm making my own path. I'm doing something I love. I still love it. And the life that I live, the balance of work and life and everything. It's just, I couldn't be happier, but I also, I was brave, I guess. Maybe I was dumb, but I was brave and I believed in myself.
What did you want to do? Like 18-year-old Jamie Little asking if she can hold the mic, doing it for free. Did you just, like me personally, like I just knew that I didn't want to go back. So whatever kind of kept me going forward. Did you say, I want to be on TV. I want to be doing this. I want to be the
Yeah.
next this. Like, did you have those goals?
Yes, I think I wanted to be the live announcer for Supercross because there was a girl there doing it at the time, Leanne Tweeden.
Oh yeah,
And I
I
was
know
like,
that.
one day she's going to be done. I want to be that girl. And then also there were men doing the interviews for Supercross and motocross. And I just remember this one moment watching, and I'm like, I can do that job better than he can. I can ask better questions than that because I love the sport so much. I was the idiot in the back of the classroom reading my dirt bike magazines when the teacher's teaching. Like, kids don't do that, but that was me. I just was on to the next thing. I was ready to check out, and there was something about racing that I loved, telling the stories of these riders. They were kids and they were breaking themselves. They were not going to school. They were homeschooled. And I just was fascinated by it. And I just kind of went with the flow, and I ended up getting to do those jobs that I wanted so bad. But, I make it all sound like it was so easy, and it wasn't. It wasn't. I have no friends from college. Like, I didn't do the college thing. I lived at 13 to 15. I got it out of my system. But there was a lot of sacrifice.
Yeah, I would never I would never would be like, "Woe is me, there's so much sacrifice." But
Yeah.
there is, and I even see it now when you say like no friends, right? I know you have some friends from like from college, your girls back west, but like I don't go on vacations. I don't go on girl trips like cuz
Right.
I'm always on the road. So like when I'm home, I want to be home or I want to be with my family. And again, I'm not complaining because I love my job and this is what I
Yeah.
chose, but it's a different world. Like I tell young women all the time, like if you are going to get into this world and you want to find a husband or you want to find somebody, like you got to make sure they're okay with you not being there at weddings and Sunday footballs
Yeah.
and Sunday races and stuff like that. They definitely have to be okay with with their significant other not being there because you sacrifice for the
Mhm.
love of what we're doing. It's a
Yeah.
very I think I heard someone say one time that we are in a very selfish industry because we do what we love and we're gone all the time. And but
Yeah.
yeah, I like imagine little Jamie like in San Diego like sleeping on a twin bed and getting up in the morning, like coming home all dirty from the racetrack and eating like a TV dinner while she's
Aw.
reading her magazine. Was it
It
like
wasn't
that?
that bad. I had the support of my mom and my stepdad because I was going to college. They paid for my college, so had to prove to them that I can do it. I had to prove to myself that I could do it and
Yeah.
finish. So I got my journalism degree. Um, but yeah, I think my mom, she just the first time I was 16. I had all horse posters up in my room because I love animals so much. And I came home after going to my first supercross race and I had taken down all my horse posters and I put up all these supercross posters, like Jeremy McGrath autograph. My mom was like, what in the hell has happened to my daughter? Like, where did she go? And all these years later, I still laugh. I'm like, I guess she understands now. It was all worth it.
It was all worth it. What was how did so it was Supercross into ESPN. How did
Yeah.
into IndyCar and then NASCAR came about in '07? How did you make the leap from what was Supercross on ESPN at that time? So were you part of the family?
Yes. So,
Okay.
yeah, so I started live announcing, but at the same time, I was doing some side jobs for ESPN, like freelance. Like I did rock crawling, Shannon, was the first time I was ever on ESPN 2. If you don't know what rock crawling is, look it up. You're in Jeeps and they're crawling up rocks. And I made the most of it. I treated it like it was an Indy 500.
Yeah,
Let me
you did.
tell you. But it was so cool because I was already doing national TV while I was going to school. So my professors would see that. So I understood when I came in what questions I really had about the industry. I had that blessing of I was out in the field. So what is pertinent? These are the things that I want to know. These are the things I want to learn. That's the advice I always get or give people. If you want to do TV, you need to learn how to write, and
Yeah.
that will set you free. So yeah, so off on a tangent. So I started doing those little jobs, and then I wanted to be part of ESPN. They had motocross, they had supercross, and they had the X Games, X Games. And I found out who the talent producer was, who made the calls, the executive producer at ESPN, Rich Feinberg,
Yep.
who Shannon knows very well.
Mhm.
And I got a hold of him. I got through to him and he said, I know who you are. I see your work, in the stadiums around the country doing supercross. He's like, listen, I'll give you one shot. We're not getting like a contract or anything. I'll give you one shot, X Games, and if you let me down, then that's it. I'm like,
And Rich
okay,
can be a little scary, so it's not
yes,
that wasn't necessarily coming from a place of love.
yeah,
It was definitely he
yes.
was being serious.
He's very matter of fact. He
Yeah.
is that job that you think of that you kind of get nervous if he's calling. You're like, oh my God.
Yeah, yeah.
Like he was tough on me, but he made me so much better as a broadcaster. But anyway, so he hires me for X Games, and it was huge. Pink was there. She just started dating Carrie. Carrie Hart is who I was introduced to Supercross by when I was 15. He and I grew up together, so I got to interview her on TV, and just these things that made those moments stand out for me as a broadcaster and got me, I think, in with ESPN. Needless to say, they hired me back and I did X Games winter and summer for 14 years. Rich came to me in 2004 in January during X Games and said, what do you know about auto racing? I'm like, I'm not going to lie. I don't know about auto racing, but it's racing mentality. I can figure it out. And a month later, I was covering the first test of an IndyCar race. It was in Phoenix. There was first test. And then a month and a half later, I was calling my first pit stop at Homestead. So it all started there. And then when ABC got the rights back to NASCAR in 2007, they called me, or I called them and said, just so you know, I want to be part of NASCAR. It's a goal. That's my next step. Just so you guys know. And then I left the office. I just had to put it out there. They called me a month later and said, you're part of the super team. You already were.
Oh,
We just were happy that you told us
that's
and
cool.
confirmed that you wanted it. And then Shannon, you were too. And then we met a couple of months later.
So ultimately, I have Rich Feinberg to thank for one of my closest friends. Thank you, Rich.
Yes.
Okay. I love the story so far. I mean, the theme of your mom kind of setting the tone in terms of like being a strong woman. This is how it is. This is what I'm going to do. Like nothing's going to deter me. Nothing's going to take me away. You stepping up and being vocal for yourself. Tell me when you walked into the boss's office and said, I want to do play by play.
It was COVID time. And I got a call from Lee Diffie. And Lee Diffie, in my opinion, one of the best play by play people we have in motorsports. And we'd known each other. He was at Fox and then he had left, but we'd send each other texts, but we weren't great friends. He calls me out of nowhere one day and I'm like, Lee Diffie. And he said, you're going to think I'm crazy, but all these other sports are hiring women to do play by play. I think you need to be the one to do it for NASCAR. And I was like, wow, that's something that I hadn't really thought about. Because honestly, I always thought that was just the guy's job. And
Yeah.
I didn't think that was a place for me. I didn't think that a woman would ever be there. I literally thought about it for 2 hours, went home and emailed my boss, Jacob Ullman at Fox. And I said, hey, please keep me in mind. And so he called me, he set up a meeting and we got to talking. And he's like, okay, I'll get back to you. And he calls me and says, do you want to do the ARCA Menard Series? I'm like, I've never covered the ARCA series. Sure. And let's do it. So I ended up doing half of the races for the next several years, but my first race was at Daytona. Shan, and most people listening to this probably know the amount of pressure that comes with just going to Daytona to cover anything. I had only, gosh, before NASCAR, I'd only been there with Supercross and you could feel the energy. Like that place is just special. And any race there is a big deal. So that was my first race doing play by play. And yeah, that was probably one of those moments, Shan, where I was like, I don't know if I sucked. I don't know if I did a good job. I don't know. I just did it and I'm done. And it might be the only time I ever do it. So I came back, I did more, but it was a lot. It was a big challenge, just like it was stepping in to cover the IndyCar series and calling my first pit stop, just like it was to get a microphone and do the live announcing at a supercross race. Those first moments, you don't know what you don't know. And it was freaking nerve wracking. And the amount of pressure, I mean, I had done 50 interviews leading up to that. I mean, the Sports Business Journal, Forbes, all these
Oh,
companies,
all
all
eyes.
these magazines wanted to talk to me about being the first woman to call a national racing series on TV. And I looked at it as a responsibility. I need to represent women, that we can do that. We have a spot in the booth calling a race. And apparently I'm going to be the first one, so I better freaking step up. And it was a lot of pressure
Yeah. I mean, you
because
read your own press, there's pressure.
yeah. I mean, you're representing a lot of women out there that would love to do this, that just it never occurred to them that they could actually make it happen. And I want producers to see that women can do it. So there was a lot of pressure. I mean, I still feel that. I still
Yeah.
feel the pressure. Every time I step in that booth, I'm representing women and I want to do a good job. And there's going to be people that are going to hate me just because I sound different and look different.
How do you handle that, Jamie?
I think I do an okay job. My husband hears the brunt of it. I mean,
Yeah.
I see some of the haters, but I've learned, one, you don't read the comments, and I've learned to shut the comments off, because what it comes down to, Shan, is I've learned I don't need people to tell me that I'm great, and I don't need people to tell me I suck. I know where I stand. I've been doing this a long time, and I know I belong where I am. So whoever, wants to say, oh, she's a woman, she doesn't belong. I'll take you up on that. I've
Yeah.
raced about everything. I can do it all, and I have the right to be there. So that's just how I see it.
You are such the yin to my yang because every time I've started is because I've had to start new. right? Like a lot of times, right? So I was in NASCAR. I was new. I wasn't part of IndyCar like you were, so I didn't have sort of like, sort of that knowledge of who I was. I dealt with a lot of I
Yeah.
remember there was that blog that went out and I would read it and I would literally want to like I would cry. Then when I started doing college basketball, it was the same thing. Just people, just she doesn't know what she's talking about. How could she? And yeah, I messed up, right? Because you're learning something new.
Yeah.
Then when I started college football, then when I started NFL, then when I started NBA, like I've had to deal with so much so many times. And again, I'm good
Yeah.
with it because I'm my biggest critic, by the way. Like I know I messed
Yes.
up. Like I don't need to go on Twitter and have somebody tell me that like I said the name wrong. I get it. I know I did. It was a mistake and it won't happen again. But I've
Yeah.
had to deal with it a lot. And I know that I don't, do you feel like when you got into that booth, that was like one of the first times that you really kind of felt some of that?
Yeah, it's a great point. Well, Shan, when you and I started our careers, and for a big part of it, there was no such thing as social media.
That's
You didn't
right.
have to deal with that. You'd have to go look at a blog
That's
to
right.
find stuff about you. And I just didn't. I just learned to not do it. As long as the people around me were happy with what I was doing and those that cared gave me insight to do a better job, great. I am my worst critic. Like you said, Shan, I am very self aware of
Yeah.
everything that I'm doing, every single thing that is coming out of my mouth. I know what I'm saying. And it's hard. It is very hard. And there are people out there that read everything about themselves. And I just don't see a point. I don't see
Yeah.
a reason to see the hate because people have the right to post their opinion about you.
Yeah. Yeah, I always tell people if you want the good, you gotta have the bad too, and so if you
Yes,
want people to tell you your hair looks great and you did a great report and the interview was great, then you also have to take some of that bad stuff as well, and
that's right.
that's just part of it.
It's the nature of being in TV, and the higher you go, the more resentful people are going to come out of the woodwork, and there's going to be more people that absolutely love what you're doing. So it is life. Everything is a balance, and it's all how you choose to handle it. Do you choose to read that? Or do you choose to not read it and continue on and being a better version of yourself every time you step in front of the camera?
Jamie, do you ever deal with imposter syndrome? Because I live with it, and I
Yes.
just you do.
Yes.
In what
Yes.
ways?
Absolutely. I mean, still, Shan, I have these moments. I had it last week in the booth. Like, what am I doing here? Like, what am I doing here? What do I know about all this? Like, why is it me? For sure, there's those moments. But I also realize, like, there's a reason that I've been here this long. And I fall back on that people have believed in me enough that I'm the one that belongs here.
Yeah.
But that is something for sure that you deal with, I think, when we get these great jobs, these great opportunities to interview Michael Jordan, like little girl that grew up in Lake Tahoe riding horses with her, living in a little tiny house with her mom, and I'm interviewing Michael Jordan. Like it's pretty damn cool how life can unfold if you just look for it and make it happen.
Well, I think also to be in some of those situations where you are pushing the envelope for anybody, right? But we'll say for women right now because you are representing women in that position. You have to be strong because you just have to be. And there's some people that can't handle that strength. Like I don't
Yeah.
know how I would do just because just mentioning how you're a lot stronger. You're a lot more direct, a lot and that comes a lot from your mom, right? This is how it is. And I love that about you. And I think there are only certain people that could be in that position. Michael Jordan, you opened the door for me. What do you guys talk about when the camera's not on?
um, we usually talk about his drivers and his race team. Literally, he is so locked in on what's happening. He knows everything, and we'll just be shooting the breeze. And first time we ever met, I think they had just hired Bubba, and we were talking about Bubba, just what he's doing, where he needs to be better. But Michael gives me that respect that I belong.
I know he
He
does.
first time I ever met him on pit road in Sonoma. I was walking by and I saw him and I was like, oh, that's awesome. MJ's out at the track. And I hear him say, that's Jamie Little. She knows everything about NASCAR. And I'm
Jeez,
like,
Jamie.
what? Really? So I turned, I'm like, this is my door. I got to go in and introduce myself. So we sit on the wall, literally just talking about his race team and being involved and how long he's been watching and how it's such a big part of his life. And but I said, can we take a picture? And he's like, sure, my wife will take it. And so I met her. She takes a picture, but he said, make sure her feet aren't in the picture because I had the wrong brand of shoes on. So I
Oh.
learned quickly that I better watch my footwear when I'm at the racetrack when MJ's there. But yeah, I mean, it's literally just talking about his drivers and, at the racetrack, what he's doing, what's coming up. He is down to earth, normal dude.
Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, I think there's a select group of people that could feel very comfortable standing in Michael Jordan's presence and asking him questions. I think there's a lot of people that might still be intimidated by that situation, even, many, many years later. And you
Yeah.
handle it because you're supposed to be there. He gives you the respect and you also give him the respect. I just think the relationship is really cool. It's like you guys are both on the same level.
Oh, thank you. Well, Shan, when people come into your world, when you're at a football game and there's somebody from NASCAR that comes in, they're in your territory and it just makes it feel better. When Donald Trump, when the president of the United States comes to Daytona, he's in my world. This is our race world. They just look at you different. They give you that respect where I think it's different if you go on their territory. It's really neat when celebrities, athletes come into the world of racing and they recognize me and maybe the job that I do. But something Michael Jordan has said before is I watch every single race. I watch every truck race. It doesn't matter if I'm in Europe, we find a TV to watch the races. So he knows his people.
I love that. That's so cool. I text you after everyone, I'm like, yeah, Jamie.
That was definitely a highlight this year. Really cool to follow what that team has accomplished and watching him just live through that. He gets that vibe, that feeling of winning again. And he's so genuinely happy.
Jamie, before I let you go, I have another topic that I want to talk about, and that is about women supporting women. I think there's been some examples lately in all kinds of different sports. Social media opens the door for a lot of that, where, hey, this woman is setting us back. My thought is the only thing that sets us back is us not supporting women. That's mine. And I learned a lot of that from you. Most women, I might cry, most women who work in sports, and I know this and you know this firsthand, they don't work side by side with another woman doing the exact same job at a time when you are really coming up and trying to prove yourself and trying to quote unquote climb the ladder. And you and I did it, and we never fought, we never had cattiness, we never stabbed each other in the back. We always had we were friends. We love each other. How do you think we were able to navigate that, Jamie?
I think it was you, Shan. I mean, honestly, I just feel like I had been the one female in a world of men and everything that I had covered that I never really experienced working with another woman. And I think that the way that you embraced me, because you had covered NASCAR, you had been part of that world before me. I was new, and you welcomed me and were so wonderful. And we were different. We were different enough. I think when two women are very similar in their outlook, the way that they do things, their goals, I think sometimes there can be that cattiness or that competitive nature. And I think you and I are just different enough that we loved each other, and you always embraced the world shared with me. And I always appreciated that. You showed me that I can work with other women. I had never experienced that.
Yeah, I think there were times, I know there were times where I would get, I don't want to say jealous. I think that's too strong. Like that's on too far of one side. But I would see things happening for you when we were in NASCAR that I would
Yeah.
say, oh man, I wish I could have that. But I think what you taught me
Yeah.
is that there's room for both, right? There's room for that competitiveness while you still love and respect the person. And as I've evolved as a person in my life, I've realized that the love and respect for people is the most important emotion for me to feel. And you should be happy for people who get opportunities. And again, I do think that you had a huge part in teaching me that and allowing me to kind of evolve in that way. Your friendship has meant the most to me over the years. And I don't think it's really easy for two women who are, I wouldn't say I'm as alpha as you. I think I've made that pretty clear in the last 15 minutes. I don't think I'm as alpha as Jamie Little is. But still two very, very dedicated, strong-willed, um, don't get in my way because I've got to get this done kind of women. And for us
Yeah.
to have a relationship like we do, I think is very rare.
Yeah, and I always admired you in so many ways too, Shan, because you did all the stick and ball sports, as we like to call it in racing. And that was something that I never did. And I never really wanted to, but I was so proud that you were doing something to me when you're on the sidelines for an NFL game and speaking gibberish. And I'm like, how the hell does she do that? But you've done so many different levels and done it all so well. I've just always appreciated you and been so proud of you. And you set the bar, I
Oh,
think, for a teammate because, like you said, not all women are okay with that. Now, on the Fox side, we have some great women that the camaraderie is real. Like, there's more women out there than ever before. And I think it's real. I think when you get older too, and we all say that you realize like, what's the point? Like,
yeah.
just support people and stand up and love them and let them know, send them a text that you appreciate them. You are way better at that than me, but you have helped make me better at reaching out to people and giving them an atta girl, when maybe before I wouldn't have.
Yeah, I don't know where that came from with me. I think maybe I saw it from people that I admired who didn't do that
Yeah.
very early on. Because and I won't, I won't name names, but I did experience that at certain levels where I would just be like all bright eyed, and I'd be like, I can't believe I'm meeting this person who I've been watching on TV, and then I would just get a little bit of a cold shoulder from them, and I just
Yeah.
remember thinking like I don't want to be that person. I want to be the person that passes this along to the girls that come next, where they're
Right.
also passing that along. And I think I learned really early on, Jamie, like, and thank God Jamie didn't want to do stick and ball sports because she'd be freaking, she would have taken all the damn jobs from me. I'm like, yeah, I'm over here. But
No.
I kid a little bit. But I do think that like we were able to support each other that way and really kind of enjoy what we did. And I think the support was the biggest thing. The support was I tell people all the time, like when I did football and basketball, I'm the only woman at the table.
Yep.
And I had an opportunity to go through, like I said, marriage, having babies. Like after I said the money shot on the pit stop at Phoenix, I was pregnant. I was 8 months pregnant. We're driving back to the hotel. I'm laying in the back seat crying because I'm like, I need to go home and nest, and Jamie's driving me back. And so we were able to support each other, which I don't think I feel bad for women who don't have that
Yeah.
that relationship with other
Well, you
women.
have to you have to be tough. Men don't want to hear women being catty. They don't want to hear them gossiping. They don't want to hear them being too girly. You've got to be one of them. And that's come easy for me, but also it is challenging. And when you're on the road with all men, you don't have somebody to lean on and be like, damn, that was hard. I keep it all to myself. And thank God for my husband. He listens to everything. He knows everything that's happening. And he talks me off of ledges sometimes, but he's the only one that really sees that vulnerability because I don't want to show that around the men that I work with. And nor do I think that that's the appropriate time to do it. But
Yeah.
you have the level of friendship with men that you work with, but it's different when it is a girl.
Well, I think it's also hard when you're on the road 5 days a week or 4 days a week to not let your guard down every once in a while.
Yeah,
We're just human, right? You can't just
right.
be on and just be focused
Yeah.
and I have to be this, I have to be strong, I have to be this. And to
Mhm.
have somebody that I could let my guard down with and you as well and say, what the heck was that I just sat down on? I just sat in on pit road.
Yep. Yep. I was glad that you were there with me to look at. Yes, somebody peed on their towel in their race car because that happens. That's normal. But they put it on the wall, and I sat in it right before we were coming on live to do an interview. So Shannon heard about that right
Yeah.
away.
She's like, I don't know what the hell I sat in, but she
But I
figured it
smell
out.
it.
See, boys and girls, NASCAR is so glamorous.
Hey, we have porta johns that are for women only now at the racetrack, Shan. We are
Yeah.
making progress.
You know what I say about the porta johns, right? I call them the great equalizer. I
Oh,
say no matter how rich or poor or famous or not famous or how good your day was or how bad it was, Every single one of us walk out of the Porta-John feeling exactly the same. We're
This
all
whole time.
breathing out of our mouth, trying not to look down, just get it over with as quickly as possible.
Oh my gosh. And yes, and it's not like there's no bathrooms at racetracks or beautiful bathrooms at racetracks, but every TV compound
Yeah.
has porta johns and we have to use them. It
Yep.
just is the way it is.
You wanna work in sports, you better be okay with using a Porta-John, period.
Yep.
Jamie, I love you. Thank you. Final question. If you could go back and tell that little girl that jumped out of that window one thing about the woman that you've become, what do you think you would say to her?
Gosh, I would say never give up your drive. I never gave up that drive. Always went for what I wanted and did not stop when somebody said no. I believed in what I wanted and I believed in myself. I never let that waver. And I think that has made all the difference in the world. That young girl that made stupid mistakes at 14 and 15, that wasn't sure who she was, who was very insecure, obviously, found that bravery and that ability to believe in herself. And nobody could take that away from you.
Is that what she would be most proud of, that little girl?
I think so. True to yourself. Stay true to yourself and everything else will fall into place. And I couldn't ask for a better life and a better career. And I'm very, very lucky. And that's because I never wavered on who I was and what I believe.
I agree. And I am lucky to have you in my life as an example of a beautiful woman who really sets the tone and definitely has taught me how to be a better person. So thank you, Miss Jamie Little, my girl. Love
Thank
you.
And love
This
you.
is
Thanks
long
for having me.
overdue. This was long overdue. And I'm so glad that it was this format that I was able to talk to you in. So
Yes.
cool. Thanks, Jamie. All right. Love Jamie. I hope you guys enjoyed that. It's true. The friendship that we have is true. It's authentic. It's definitely evolved over the years. I'm enormously happy for her, proud of her. I believe like the first time she ever was in the booth with the ARCA series, I believe I sent her flowers. I don't think that was a one-time deal as well. She did a lot of things in racing that a lot of women haven't. And that takes a lot of strength. And it still does. It takes a lot of strength to get up there every single week and continue to push forward, even though you at times are not comfortable. And she's doing that for all of us. Okay, here is a YouTube comment from our interview with John Gruden that Andrew, thank you, Andrew, left. He said, "This is an outstanding podcast. I'm seeing a direct correlation between you and your interviewees. Thank you for your talent and preparation for these interviews." I thank you. It's been a real adventure for me because I try to prepare as much as possible. But I also try to really let the person take me where they're going to go because I don't know where that is. And we've had some really great conversations. The John Gruden one was very cool. Some of the things that he may have, some of the choices he may have made in his life that we were like, what? This could have looked totally different. This John Gruden space could have looked totally different. But thankfully, it looks exactly how it's supposed to. So if you haven't heard that one, make sure that you go back, let John Gruden know that you heard it. Let Jamie Little know that you heard this podcast as well. I definitely think there was some vulnerable moments for Jamie, and I appreciate her trusting me and trusting this space, and quite frankly, trusting everybody with some of that information. But as we get older, I think using the experiences that we've had to show people like these moments are not the moments that are going to define us. We're going to continue to carve our own path, which is what she's done. So make sure you share this episode with Jamie, with your friends. Hey, there's a lot of little girls out there that are looking to make it in this industry. Share that episode with them. Here's two women who have been in the business for more than 20 years, who have worked in quote unquote male sports, who have had to climb through the ranks and have had to do things. I think Jamie, listening to Jamie talk will be a great tool for some young girls who are looking to get into this business. So make sure you share it. Make sure you share it with your daughters, with your friends' daughters, and make sure they subscribe to the YouTube channel. You could check out our podcasts on Apple, Sons and Daughters on Instagram, TikTok. We're everywhere. We're trying to grow it so that we get better guests and not I'm not better guests because we've had freaking great guests, but we continue to get great guests. And make sure that you check out our new Sons and Daughters merch. We're official, ladies and gentlemen. We have merch at shop.dirtymomedia.com. And I actually have some ideas for some merch. Here's one of them right now. This is one of the Sons and Daughters. But I have some ideas for merch that I just sent in. And so I think we're going to get some really cool stuff that's going to be really fun and trendy, and people are going to just completely buy up. So again, let Jamie know that you heard the podcast, share it with your friends, and thank you for being here another week on Sons and Daughters.